What is happening, man? Welcome.
Hello, hello.
Good to have you on, man. I'm excited to dive in. I know kind of where your direction is and kind of the focus of the business and really pushing to where, and you and I've had this conversation many a times, really where I believe agents should be focusing, especially with all of the changes in the marketplace and who knows what's happening, the institutional buyers and just affordable housing, cost to reconstruct, insurance costs. There's a lot of interesting variables in kind of the residential home landscape as we see now and into the future. But before we jump in, man, I would love for you to give us a little background and life before real estate, and we'll kind of bring ourselves up to the present day.
Up to the present day, yeah. It's funny you say that. Affordable housing, that's the first thing I think catches everybody's ear. It's kind of a hot word, which kind of doesn't exist anymore.
No,
like there's so many parts of the country where, affordable is all relative, right? And I think across the board we can just say it's more expensive than it ever has been. And so it does change the landscape quite a bit, which kind of, takes us back to my starting point, which was in affordable housing. That was how I got started. 13 years ago now.
Oh, wow.
So real estate was my second career. Like I'm on career number 2 here. Originally, I thought I was going to be an electrical engineer for my whole life. I thought I was going to be a design engineer, make cool stuff. Joke's on me. Here we are.
Now you get to make cool houses, right? You get to help navigate cool houses and stuff, right?
We do a lot of other cool things. Cool things. And I will say that, my background in engineering and math and physics has certainly given me what I would see as an edge to many of the people that we're competing with, just because I look at things a little bit differently. I look at things a little bit from an analytical standpoint, or at least that's how I got started, right? That's how I got started when, you're trying to get your first handful of deals. You're trying to differentiate yourself. You're trying to build a brand and a reputation. I would say that core competencies related to, analytical skills really kind of got me started. It got me my first handful of deals, and it made me competitive where I wouldn't have been otherwise, because I didn't have any experience, didn't have any network, didn't have any money, right? So that was kind of the skill set that I was able to lean on when I got into real estate back in 2013 to kind of build a name, to build, a track record. And so that's been a really important part of how we view, working with clients, how we view, deal structure, how we deal, just our business in general. It's always come from the concept that it's just a bunch of problems, right? Real estate is just a bunch of problems. And the whole game is starting from point A and getting to point B using the resources you have. That's it.
Is there a framework or something that you kind of default back to because of kind of your education and upbringing and kind of where how your mind operates and in the direction you were going, and now how you look at every situation, right? You almost can almost see everything kind of in 3D, right? You're able to it's almost as if like it's Tony Stark, right? Where it's up in there and he's spinning it around. He can see it from different angles and being able to see it. And I think when you have kind of how your mind operates and from an engineering standpoint of how you break things apart and put things back together. So like, is there a framework that you kind of fall back on to be able to kind of, okay, let's unpack this. Let's lay it out here. Let's lay it this way. Let's start to put it together a certain way. Is there kind of a process or a format that you operate in?
There is. I think that framework really starts with the realization that anything you're trying to do in real estate has probably been done in some other market at some other time with some other resource. So that's kind of the confidence, the groundwork of confidence that we approach every, tricky deal with, or, a house that won't sell, or a deal that doesn't pencil, right? It's all built on the foundation that it can work. It can work if you apply the right strategies to the problem, the right resources to the problem. Somebody's probably done it. It's just now your job to figure out how it can be done. So I know that's a little bit vague, but a good example is like commercial real estate. There are so many crazy structures and clauses and really creative things to make deals happen. But everybody in residential real estate, it's not really a hot topic. People don't talk about deal structure in the same way. And so you can actually pull from different asset classes, and you can pull from just different markets in general. And you'd be like, oh, hey, they did that in this clause to solve this problem. Like, can we integrate something like that in a deal, which could be a different asset class? It could be a different situation, but the mechanism could work. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, 100%.
So, yeah. So that foundation of like, hey, somebody's probably already figured this out in some other context. How can we bring that solution to our current situation? So
you attack it with that confidence, knowing that, hey, we can figure this out. I'm sure it's been figured out before. This is not going to be unique. So I know there's a solution here. Now let's just start looking for other clues and other evidence that can help, that we could apply to solve this situation as well.
That's right. Which again is exactly the process in engineering, right? You're like, hey, we're starting at this point. We need to get to this point, and we'll figure it out along the way with the tools and resources we have. Now, you may not know the tools and resources, which is where I think that's where my passion comes in with working with other agents and our team. It's like, how can you become a better agent, right? We don't need to be a ticky-tacky, one solution, one trick pony, right? We actually are very capable of solving much more sophisticated problems and situations than I think a lot of agents in our industry give themselves credit for, right? I think that's a really important thing of kind of the rhetoric and the mindset that agents around me, it kind of rubs off on. It's like, hey, you can figure this out. It might be a little more sophisticated. It might take a little bit more time. You might have to go learn a new skill to get the deal done, but ultimately you're capable of that. And once you've seen it a couple of times, then you're like, oh yeah, we can borrow that from over here and pull that over here, and now we got a deal, right?
Yeah.
So that's been a really big part of kind of the paradigm within not only our team, but also just our general community of brokers that I work with and cross collaborate with. It's that, hey, we can figure this out, right?
Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, it all starts in the mind, right? Mindset and the belief that, we can find a solution to this. And it really is how important right there, right? We're either going to figure it out, or we're already going to talk ourselves out of it. You can't figure it out. But I think that's super important as you get out of more of the, cookie cutter, in the box traditional way of how things have been done and how they've been structured, and kind of how we kick this whole conversation off of, the traditional, run of the mill affordable housing cookie cutter type deals. They're going to become fewer and fewer. I really do believe that. And especially as an agent, to where you're going to find yourself more valuable, because you look at, if it is really repetitive and pretty cookie cutter, and this is the way it is, that's where you can easily be replaced. But now when you're getting in and having to have some thinking involved, right, and some experiences and some resourcefulness, I think that's where you position yourself to where it makes it real hard to replace you in the future with just AI, with just these other companies that are just going to be, trying to do some push and buy, push and play type of structures.
Well, you look at like Redfin's a great example. There's a time and a place for Redfin. I'm not knocking any brokerages, right? But it's a model where it's you put it through the system, right? And it works well for the discounted experience if you're trying to sell something that's totally in the box, right?
Yeah.
And it's taken a lot of business from agents who work inside the box.
Right.
If you're an agent who feels like you're competing with Redfin, then it's maybe time to get a different perspective and a different tool set and a different level of competency to solve the problems and bring kind of a higher level of service and a different lens to how you sell real estate. So I think that's just a great example of what you're talking about. It's like, that's a very clear, market share disruptor that's happened over the last, 10 years.
Yeah.
It's like, you got to be able to compete with that and provide different level of service and solutions.
Right. 100%. So for you guys, in the world that you were in, what intrigued you? I mean, why get into real estate? Why get into residential real estate?
Let me tell you a quick story. So I used to work for the Department of Defense, and I was good at what I did. I was good. And I had this nice little cozy gray cubicle where I wrote my technical paper and I solved some problems, right? And one day I turned around with the guy I shared the cubicle with, right? His little 4-pack. Uh-huh. And I'm writing the same paperwork as a guy who'd been there for 42 years. Oof. And he was an amazing engineer. Like, he knew what he was doing. Total respect for this guy. I learned so much from him. But he was making $30,000 more a year than I was. And he'd been there for 42 years. And I had a moment. Where I was like, my ladder is against the wrong building.
Yeah.
So that was the day that I was like, I need to find a different vehicle to take me and my family where we want to go in life.
Yeah.
And so
that
was the trigger.
What's the difference in you having that aha moment versus him just being complacent for 42 years?
The thing is, I don't think he was complacent. And that's why I say, like, I respect this guy completely. Like, he had an amazing life. He had exactly the life that he wanted. Right.
Yeah.
It just wasn't the life that I wanted. And
so it was in other words, it was fulfilling for him, right? It was he was good with his vision. It was allowing him to live the life that he wanted to live.
Yeah. And that just wasn't aligned with what I wanted to live and what my now wife wanted to live. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's where we ended up getting into investment real estate. That aha moment took place probably 18 months in to my engineering career. So pretty early. Yeah. And so from that point, kind of timeline wise, I was there for 18 months, had the aha moment, realized that, like, hey, I need a different vehicle. And so I had a little bit of context about real estate. My parents owned some real estate back in the late 80s, early 90s. And so when I was little, I remember some of the conversations, in the household. I was young, but I remembered, okay, hey, they're solving problems, they're doing things. My ancestors, all the way back, like multiple generations, we kind of have a running joke in the family that we come from horse traders. Totally the type of family, like, no matter which generation, like, we were buying or selling something.
Yeah.
Horses, farms, like trucks. My grandfather was in the trucking business as well as my
always
father.
Hustling something.
Just hustling something, like moving in storage. Like, it was like any generation, like, since they came to America, like, that was
their gig.
That was the gig. So had a little bit of context about real estate, decided, hey, why don't we get our feet wet? I can buy a property with like 3.5% to 5% down, which at the time is like all the money I had. I was like, I'm gonna let's buy a property, let's fix it up, and then we'll get our start. And so that's how it got started. Back in 2012, we bought the first property, and it was a little house for $123,500. That's what I paid for it. And so my 5% down was like $6,500. And it was the first big wire, right? Big wire I'd ever made. I was like, well, there goes all the money that I saved up in the last, 6 months from my engineering job. And that was it. So bought the first one. Elizabeth, my wife, she was my girlfriend at the time. We fixed it up, the good old sweat equity play. We made a lot of mistakes. It was our first lesson in why things cost what they do, because other people are better at the skill than you are. And so we refinished floors a couple of times. We repainted. We did a bunch of landscaping, just like your baseline, like fixer upper, right? It was just enough to get our feet wet. But the most important thing that came from that was that I ended up renting it out to two buddies that I hired in with, who worked with me. And every month they each dropped their rent check on my desk. And that was the most beautiful day of the month, right? That I probably cash flowed $75 a month, right? After
it felt good.
But that $75 was like way better than any engineering money I ever made.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It teaches you the lessons there. I was just kind of thinking, when you had that aha epiphany moment and decided to make a shift, make a pivot, how likely would you have been if you were married and had the kids, right? Or do you not make that pivot because you have other obligations? And I've seen that a lot, right? To where it takes a strong sense of belief, and it takes buy-in from everybody around you to be able to make the pivot when you've got other mouths to feed than just your own. Yep. And, I'd be curious to see, obviously it's just hypothetical, how that decision would have been made if it was, 18 months in, but 18-month-old, maybe a new one on the way, multiple car seats, how you make that move.
So it's funny you bring up this idea, because I feel like as an entrepreneur, and I know that you will probably connect with this as well as many other people that listen to this podcast, your stamina and your tolerance change with experience. Right? And so at the time, like the first step into real estate, that first $6,000 wire, that first headache of a project, it seemed really risky, right? Seems really risky. And I probably wouldn't have taken that first perceptively risky step if there was more at stake, right?
Yeah.
You're totally right about that. The thing though is, like, when you get started early and you start with kind of the baby steps of taking a calculated risk, it builds your tolerance and your confidence, right? And so when you say like, how has that changed now that, my wife and I, very happily married, we're coming up on 10 years. We have been through so much business stuff together, just like, catastrophes, right? Just like any entrepreneur.
Learning lessons.
Yeah. With that comes higher tolerance. And so, we have 3 kids, but in some ways it still feels like each business move we make, each hire we take on, each, big marketing drop you make, when you stretch constantly, you're constantly in this stretching capacity, then you still feel like that $6,000 wire.
Yeah.
Right. I feel that every day.
Yeah.
Every day that's the same. It's just with different situations. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, it does 100%. It's still the same process, right? And you use the word calculated risk. You calculated the risk at the given time. You would calculate the same risk given this, the current situation. Yeah. And then you can layer in, experiences on top of it. And, that's one of the reasons why I just love doing the hard endurance stuff, because it, when you do hard things, go through hard experiences, be it life, be it things that happen to you, or things that, you instigate on your own, you learn a little bit more of how to navigate and handle when that situation comes around again. It might not be the exact same, but it's going to probably be a close cousin. You're going to be able to resemble from it, and being able to pull from that to be able to navigate through. And I think it's, once you know you can finish and navigate through the storm, that it just gives you the confidence when the storm comes again to be able to navigate through it. The second, the third, the fourth, the dozen, 2 dozen, 300th time, to be able to just continue to push through and get through it. So no, it's really cool. So, for you then on the real estate side of things, more getting into the investment side and really being able to apply kind of your education and just kind of how understanding, you and how your brain works. What really then led into, hey, we're going to be on the investment side, we're going to do this, that led into, we need to probably sell some of this stuff as well?
Yeah, that's great. So we bought that first investment property. Loved the little checks coming in. The next thought in that process was, hey, we need like 100 more of these. Right?
Yeah.
But we didn't have enough capital, and I wasn't making enough as an engineer to really be like reinvesting and growing that, right? So, again, we're solving the problem of not having capital, and so that's why I got into wholesaling, right? That was the next skill level. Is like I started kind of keying in on how do we become a better marketer and a better negotiator and a better deal maker, right? So that was kind of the next step. Is we started wholesaling properties again in that affordable price point to other investors. And so we started building that network. Eventually we started doing a lot of creative finance deals. So we're doing like zero money down sort of stuff. We were doing very high return, like cash on cash return deals, which were some of the best deals that to this day, Elizabeth and I have done.
Let's pause right there a little bit. I want you to unpack that a little bit, because I think this is super important for a lot of folks to understand, either on the investment side of things, and more so on the investment side of things. The reason that and you and I have talked a lot about this, the only reason that I believe you have a real estate, residential real estate license is to build some type of vehicle that allows you to uncover opportunities.
Yeah.
And been thinking a lot about it lately, and just kind of where we're at in kind of our next move and our next couple moves. And one of the things that I've always kind of loved how you approach things and you think about it and look, and it's rare. It's not a common thought process, is the creative deal structure and the creative financing. Talk to us a little bit about that. Maybe some basics to kind of think about, to help people get their head around. Okay, you have to have this skill set. You have to have this way of thinking. You have to be able to have it. If not, you're going to miss out on opportunities, or you're going to miss out on opportunities for others that you can tie yourself into. There's always a way, and it's not the conventional way, but there's always a way. I would love for you to kind of unpack that as much as you can, because to me, this is super, super important for agents and investors. And I say this as an agent, you should be an investor, and how you can, tie yourself to any opportunity, understanding creativeness.
Well, just being able to monetize any lead that comes in, that's important. That's important. Like the skill set of being able to think creatively and have creative deal structure under your belt, it transcends into your brokering business if you do it correctly. Because yes, you should be buying properties, but you can't buy every property. You can't buy every deal, right? And on the flip side, a lot of these skill sets and the deal structure mechanisms that we can use to solve interesting problems in real estate, they can actually be done on the retail side as well, which we can come back to, because that's been part of the transition to where we are now, is taking these more interesting skill sets and moving them to the retail side in brokering deals. But you're totally right. Basically, we are seeing more deals than the normal consumer, right? So if we're the one-trick pony and we're only focused on selling first-time home buyers, right? you're missing this whole tranche of wealth building, which is buying your own deals, right? It's buying your own deals. The creative process or the creative deal structure allows you to be competitive in ways that other people don't see. Mm-hmm. And so when we got started, we were wholesaling properties. We're saying, great, we're going to put this under contract. We'll sell the contract to a cash buyer. Done and done. We make a little fee. That's great for about 10% of your leads that come in, right? So we're spending all this money on marketing. Great, lead comes in, you wholesale the contract, beautiful, you make your fee. But what about the other 90% of the leads that are coming in? You're just leaving all of that opportunity on the table because you can't actually solve the problem that the seller needs.
Right.
And a lot of times those deals, they've already gotten 5, 10, 15 cash offers that don't solve their problem. Doesn't solve their problem. So if you're going to come in there and maximize the opportunity, you can't just write them another cash offer, right? It's a bottom of the barrel competitive situation, right? You're competing for the same thing versus saying, hey, we're going to flip this on its head and we're going to make money a different way within the deal. And so that is the engineering side that started coming out. I was like, oh, I don't have enough capital myself to be flipping these houses. I can't place every deal that's coming in, but there's a lot of sellers that need help. And there's a way for me to put something in front of them, an option in front of them, that the other 10 investors that have already knocked on their door and sent the mail have not been able to provide. So that's where we started looking at, okay, instead of how do I get my cash offer accepted, we flipped it on its head and said, how do I actually help the seller solve this specific problem? There's one really good example that there was kind of a turning point in our career on the investment. There was a deal where, this guy had a property. He owed about $165,000 on the property. And all the cash offers that were coming in fixed up. This house was probably worth $215,000, $220,000. And so he was getting cash offers in the $120,000 range, right? $40,000 off. He's in a short sale territory. It really wasn't that bad of a house. It was livable, except for the fact that his tenant had torn out the one bathroom. It was a 4-bed, 1-bath, and the bathroom was totally torn up. So he couldn't sell it. It wouldn't finance traditionally, right? You can't get a loan if it doesn't have a bathroom. So he's in this weird spot where he's like, I just need a little bit of money to fix these things to get it financeable, but I don't have the money. And the only option is a short sale, which doesn't make sense if all you got to do is fix a bathroom and do some touch-up work, right? It doesn't make sense to take a big loss. So what we did is we actually structured it as a lease option to buy it at a certain strike price, which for him, he needed to get out of the deal. So I think we put it under a lease option for about $180,000. So he was going to walk away with like $15,000, right? Which is way better than the $120,000 offers he was getting. We were $60,000 higher than the competition, right? So we raised private money to do about $15,000 worth of work. We fixed the bathroom, we fixed all these ticky-tacky items. And then I ended up listing the property with the option. It was basically a novation deal before novations were cool, right? So what we did is we put it under contract once we'd fixed it up. And once we were under contract, I moved my option contract into a deed of trust. And we just got paid out a little bit of commission, and we got paid out our profit, and our private money loan got paid back on a deed of trust. And he made $15,000, and we got it done in like 6 months. It was straightforward. It solved his problems. I covered his carrying costs along the way. I got into the deal for $500. It was a $500 option, but nobody had given him this scenario of how we could get him out except for me. So he's like, yeah, let's do it. You give me $500 right now. You take care of my $1,000 a month payment. And that was it. So we ended up making like $50,000 on the deal. And I was in it my own money for like $4,500.
Yeah. It's the, there's always that solution. And I think when you really get down to these homeowners, especially kind of working creativeness with the sellers, is finding out what their real pain point is. And I mean, he was willing to just walk away with it without spending any more money. You actually was able to allow, that to happen and put money on his pocket. That's really where I think the whole direction of real estate and thinking, and that's really where the expertise in the differentiation is really going to be played moving into the future. And
Totally.
I know for you and kind of where your business focus has gone more on luxury side, and to me, like, you have to have that skill set and that ability to how to creative financing and deal structure when you get into these properties that are, multi-million dollar properties, and being able to navigate, how we're going to structure, put this deal together.
You're leading right into it, right? We got really good at this creative finance stuff, and we like, the great thing about zero down deals is that, like, you don't have to have a lot of cash to get a deal done. The downside is that it's a lot easier to lever up pretty hard. Right. And so what happened was in 2018, Elizabeth and I had about six transactions. We had 6 flips going / creative deals. And so the market took, at least in the Seattle area, it took just it cooled off just a little bit. And so Q3 of 2018, we had these 6 deals going, and like a good deal in the price point that we were working in. Like, we were averaging, I don't know, anywhere between like $35,000 and $70,000 in profit, which is solid in like this $200,000 to $500,000 price range. Those are solid deals, right? So we had a string of these. 2018 took a little bit of a dip. We ended up selling everything, but we made a lot less than we were expecting. It was the first moment that we're like, ooh, okay. We had a decent amount of exposure for what we were doing, which is fine. That's part of the game, right? That's part of the game. But we had this realization that, hey, we live in kind of a special place in that we have $200,000 to $500,000 inventory, but we also have like $2 million to $5 million inventory.
Yes,
like a lot of it. We have a lot of it, and so that was the moment, Q3 of 2018. Where we looked at each other. We were actually going for a walk with our dog on this beautiful bluff in a neighborhood called Magnolia in Seattle. And there was a house for sale, looking out over the bluff, looking over the Puget Sound, views of the Olympic Mountains. And we're like, oh my, this is like the most beautiful view. Sun was setting, going for a walk. We're like, we want that house.
Yeah. We want that view.
We want that view. Turns out that house was for sale. As we got closer to it, we're like, okay, this is for sale. We looked it up. It was listed for like $5 million, like $5.25. And so we're standing there looking at each other. We're like, what's the commission on $5 million? I was like, oh, actually, 2.5%. That's like, $75,000. Like, oh, that's what we made on our last flip. What if we just sold one of those? Like, what if we sold one of those and like didn't have the exposure that we were kind of freaking out over? So that was the moment. We're like, great, new vision board on our walk here. Let's go ahead and focus on $5 million properties instead. And so it was that moment that we ended up putting our first one of our first builder contracts together and breaking into this luxury space. And it was literally because we were like, great, we've got 6 properties we need to sell. We don't love the exposure and how that makes us feel inside, knowing that we've got a handful of payments coming up every month. Things weren't moving the way they should, but hey, what if we just sold some better properties and we just changed up our business model a little bit? Not that we can't buy properties and cherry pick the really good deals, but for that active cash, like, why are we flipping and taking on exposure when we could just sell better properties? And that was the push into the luxury market that has changed the trajectory of our business and our lives, and like it's been a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it really has. And for you, you saw it. And I think just the confidence in being in the marketplace, being in the confidence of having the creativeness and the deal structure. Where do you see most agents though that struggle with that belief, that mindset, and the belief that they're even worthy of selling a $2 to $5 million property?
You named it. It's the belief, right?
Yeah.
That's a big part of it. The belief is a big part of it. And you can partner that belief with a lack of skill set, right? It's a two-way street. They go together. Like if you have a higher level skill set, you're much more likely to feel confident swinging the bat at brokering bigger deals, right? Once you do that, you're like, ooh, great. Now I got a little more confidence, and like we'll go do it again. And so you have to have both. You have to have both, because the reality is like selling. Everybody thinks that like selling a $5 million property is the same as selling a $500,000 property. Like, okay, the mechanics are basically the same, but the nuance is different. And that's where people, I think there's a gap in the skill set. It's in the nuance. It's not in the time it takes to sell the deal, right? It's not in the mechanics of the contract necessarily. It's how do you approach your clients? How do you approach the problem solving? How is your communication, your vocabulary different? How do you present yourself and your network of opportunities in a different way? And I think that's where there's a gap in knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Which is totally something you can learn. That's the great thing. You can learn those skills. And so that's where I think the creative finance, it allowed us to pick a niche within real estate that we already had some of those skill sets. We were already doing those creative deals. And so we started just providing those creative options to the higher level clients, which is what they wanted to see, right? When you're at an open house and somebody says, hey, we're just not seeing the inventory we want. And you're like, hey, well, great. I can actually go search for an off-market property for you. This is how we do it. It's like we were doing that on the investment side. We were finding off-market properties. We were doing the right type of marketing to generate seller leads in the off-market space. So why can't we just take that skill set and move it over to retail buyers who wanted to buy a $2.5 million property and just couldn't find what they wanted? And so that's where we took that skill set and we partnered it with the mindset of like, okay, how do we bridge that gap for clients and find a niche that we can perform in? So that was the start of it. And that's, I hope that kind of answers your question of like, how do you get your mindset where it needs to be? And the answer is like, well, what skill sets do you have and which ones do you need to layer on in order to have the confidence to go swing the bat in those price points?
Yeah, it is. It is developing in like you said, that additional skill set, but knowing how to approach, like you said, the nuances. What are, other than, language and kind of thought connections, what are some of the other little nuances that you see are really critical as you look to move your price point up in your marketplace? What are some of the things that agents need to start paying attention to and studying?
Market dynamics. That's something that I think we can say most agents don't know the data, right? As well as they could or should, right? Some people are like, yeah, great. Average days on market is this. Okay, great. But what is the average days on market for a specific price band in a specific neighborhood? Because that's different. And that actually matters in the luxury space, where it's like, okay, you can't compare a $2 million property in neighborhood A with a $2 million property in neighborhood B. They're different neighborhoods, and the buyer dynamics, the nuance of those dynamics is different. Like buyers are choosing neighborhood A over neighborhood B for different reasons. Right. So why is that? And like, what is the difference between the $2 million houses in those neighborhoods? And I think it's that level of detail and it's that level of understanding of the data to understand why people are making decisions in certain ways that agents just don't spend enough time on.
Yeah. No, I get it. It's so important. And I mean, we talk about, how you have to understand that even before you get up in here. But as you were saying something, like if they have that type of money and they're investing that type of money in a place to live, like there's a specific reason that's important to them, and being able to know that is key. And just maybe start kind of thinking through, like in the DFW market, and specifically in Frisco, there's different gated communities that they have, and depending upon even down to culture dynamics of why they would even want to be in there for particular reasons, close to different churches, different types of schools and things like that. So being really well educated on all the little facets, that how people make decisions, is super important to be able to have and understand.
And but that's kind of the fun part, right? When you've sold enough of the ticky-tacky homes, the one-trick pony transactions, then all of a sudden you can step into this new world where you're like, oh, there's another level to this, right? There's another level of understanding and detail and nuance. That to me is fun, because we can all, I mean, anybody listening to this has probably sold their fair share of properties, right? But isn't the self-development of an entrepreneur, isn't the fun like the development of new skills and figuring out how you can level up? Like getting into the luxury market is, it's fun. It's fun. Yeah. It's like you all of a sudden have a new level of inspiration for what used to be kind of a mundane thing.
Yeah.
Right. Because selling houses, like you go through the steps, right? You go through the steps, but then to add this level of like, ooh, I added this very specific vocabulary with this data to help somebody make a better decision. Now, all of a sudden, it's not just slinging homes. You're like, okay, I'm being thoughtful about this process. I'm really understanding my clients at a different level. I'm understanding the data at a different level. I'm bringing in, new information that only a couple of brokers know about. Like all of a sudden, that becomes super valuable in the luxury space, and that's fun.
Yeah,
that's a fun part of what we get to do, and it's a way to level up your skill set and step into something that is kind of a fresh look on what we do in everyday transactions.
Yeah. No, I do. I think it's, I'm thinking back just even on the creative properties, being able to bring it. And I think even agents that maybe haven't dealt in the luxury space, they have dealt with very unique properties that they have to get really creative with to be able to position and sell. So it's a lot of the similarities there, and, being able to have that kind of that framework and then being able to stack on top of that. So you transitioning more now, obviously still heavy in the market, heavy in the luxury space, but also starting to get into kind of the educational side of things and helping agents really develop the skill sets and things like you're talking about to be able to arm themselves moving into the future. So, you and I are sitting back here a year from now, kind of the direction and everything you're working on. What are we celebrating? What are we talking about that's happened over the next, 12 months, as it pertains to the direction you're going on the educational side for agents, and specifically breaking into and really thriving in the luxury space?
Yeah. I think that if agents are going to really step up their business, it's going to get a lot harder in the lower price points and the medium price points. And so to me, and I think you would agree with this, like if you can step into that luxury world and at least have a handful of transactions that are really meaningful, both financially and inspirationally, right? Mm-hmm. You can really transform your life and your business and your family and how you interact with the world. And so what we will be celebrating a year from now is helping the first 100 agents double their price point, double their average price point. And that to me is something that's very tangible for the year. It's something that I'm passionate about. Like I want 100 agents to learn from the steps that I've created, right? I've just laid out a whole plan. It was my 5 years from 2018 to 2023. It's literally everything that we did to start from nothing to break into a much higher price point. We tripled our price point from 600,000 to 2.1. Last year we did an average price point of 2.1. And so that's what I want to help agents with, right? It's like if you're going to be in this space and you're going to be here long term, you have to be able to sell better properties and have. So that's what I'd like to celebrate. We'll celebrate a year from now. It's helping 100 agents get to that point where they can double their price point because it's crucial. It's crucial.
Yeah, it really is. I think it's just for the direction, like what we talked about at the beginning, and knowing what the institutional investors are wanting to do. You factor in, cost to build, insurance costs and everything that, even if fewer transactions that are made available, but higher price points. So even if you are an agent doing, 2 to 3 deals a month, still maintaining 2 to 3 deals a month, but triple, the amount of money, there's only a handful of ways to truly grow your business, and increasing your average transaction value is one of the, 3, some can say, there's only 3, there's only 5 ways to really exponentially grow your business. One of both 3 and 5 is to increase that average transaction value. And so, to me, it's absolutely critical with everything that's kind of stacking up against us, as well as, ways to, increase the value, your dollar per hour, and everything moving into the future.
Yep. And the cool thing about the luxury market is that honestly, there's so many niches. There's so many niches. And I think one of the big limiting beliefs of agents trying to break into the luxury market is that I don't live the lifestyle. I don't have the right car. I don't have the network. I don't have the track record, right? These are all things that agents tell themselves, which keep them from actually, giving it a shot. And so what I love is there's so many different niches that you can pick one that actually is, it works with your skill set, right? It works with your past experience, works with your skill set, works with your age demographic. Like I'm 20 years younger than most of the agents that are working in the upper price points. And it's because we picked a niche through new construction. Like the builders don't care about your track record as long as you bring them a good deal. That is your entry point, right? That is your entry point to getting your first beautiful listing, right? That's how we did it. That's how we did it. And there are so many different ways you can do it based on your skill set. That's one that worked for us really, really well, right? We didn't have track record. We didn't have the network. We weren't living in the right neighborhoods. Like we just needed the first handful of luxury deals to get things rolling. And that's how we did it. And so there is a niche for everybody. It's just figuring out which one's best for you. For us, super powerful working with developers, especially in our market where there's a lot of opportunity for that.
So good. It's so good. And, I definitely love the new construction side of things, and being able to go to that in your market, in your niche is really, really powerful. So Jacob, I know you're working on, kind of the first 30 days that agents can get their hands on. When this rolls out and able to listen to it, where can they go to grab a copy of, being able to break into and start to thrive in the luxury real estate space? In kind of the first 30 days.
First 30 days. It's all about momentum. It's about taking action in the right direction, right? Just like anything, just like any business. And so, my wife and I have put together this really cool thing where it just helps agents build momentum over 30 days. And it's by taking one action step a day, super tangible, really easy to do, right? Everybody can do one thing a day, right?
Yeah.
Prioritize one thing a day. And after 30 days, you'll actually feel like you have the confidence and you start to build some habits and you have some new systems and mindsets in place to actually start going to chase after luxury business. So you can find it at jacobweaver.luxury/30 days. And super easy. It's like you just totally free, just gets people starting to take action, right? Those 100 agents who are going to follow the plan and actually double their price point this year, like it just starts with momentum.
So that's jacobweaver.luxury.
Yep. jacobweaver.luxury/30 days.
Boom. I love it. I'm going to throw that right there up on the bottom for us. Boom. There we go. jacobweaver.luxury 30 days. And yeah, to me, it's like I said, I think if you want to not just survive, but thrive in working with buyers and sellers, I mean, one of the ways is increase your dollar per hour, and it's through luxury, but I just the direction and the way things are, and just kind of seeing and thinking about things and kind of knowing what disruptors are trying to take place, it's going to be real hard to disrupt and remove the true expert, true professional out of the higher end real estate. I mean, there's still high end travel agents. I mean, there's still, high end luxury car services. So there's still going to be a need for somebody that has the true expertise to be able to work in the higher market. And it's like, I was reading something the other day, like, Rolex doesn't run Black Friday specials, right? No. Rolex doesn't do, the Ritz doesn't do Black Friday specials, right? So I think it's making the decision, do you want to be the Ritz-Carlton or the Motel 6? And I just think Motel 6 is getting wiped out, and we're better off positioning and being the Ritz-Carlton.
Totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. Also, it's more fun to stay at the Ritz-Carlton. Let's be honest.
Yes, it is. It really is. So, yeah. Brother, I appreciate you. I'm super excited to see where this luxury focus and the educational side of things and the pieces. I know it's going to be very critical, very, very, I don't want to say critical, but almost a dang necessity for a lot of agents moving into the future to be able to develop and have this skill set. And, what's even cool is even, lower price point deals that you got to get creative around. At least now you have the new skill set to apply it to that as well.
Absolutely. They all weave together, right, John? Like our industry is not segmented. There are many buckets that overlap. And so, yeah, it's a skill set that you can buy your own properties. You can bring higher level service to your clients. You can step into luxury spaces by just thinking differently. Critical.
So couldn't agree more. Brother, appreciate you. Thank you again. And make sure you guys go check it out, jacobweaver.luxury/30 days, and get that educational piece to be able to help you grow and position yourself where I truly believe you must be moving into the future.
Thank you, John.
Awesome.
Super good to see you. Thanks for the chat.
Yes. See you, bud. Bye.
Talk to you.